Hello and welcome to the Wee Geeks Beginner's Guide on how to use Excel in 2021. So let's just go ahead and get started. I am using a Windows 10 machine, so in order to reach Excel, all I need to do is just click on my search bar at the very bottom, type in Excel, and you'll see the app presented to you. The other method in which to reach Excel, if you're using an earlier version of Windows, is to search and select it through your Start menu. So just go ahead, click Start, and then search for Excel and click it that way. If you're using a Mac, all you need to do is just launch your terminal and search and select Excel that particular way. Okay, so let's just click on Excel to get going. Okay, so it's worth noting at this moment that I am using Excel 2019, but everything that I'm sharing today can be used in earlier versions of the software. Okay, so let's have a look. What have we got here? So the actual window that's presented to you is Excel's welcome screen, and this is split into two. On the left hand side of the menu, you'll see your recently accessed documents, and as you start to use Excel on a regular basis and save your documents, you'll see this list start to build up. So if you have a document that you're working on an ongoing basis, a kind of really cool thing that you can do is actually pin it to your recent menu, and it will show at the top every time you launch into the application itself. And similarly, if you wanted to unpin this, just a case of hovering over that pin icon, clicking on it, and it will reduce it back down to the normal stack. Okay, so on the right hand side of this welcome screen, you'll see a bunch of tiles that are presented to you. Now, as you can see, there's kind of like welcome tutorials, tutorials based on formulas and power queries and stuff like that. And to be honest with you, power query and pivots and all that stuff, it is quite advanced. So you might find that useful, down the line. But certainly for today, we're just going to go over the absolute basics for you. But anyways, let's scroll down this particular section, and what you'll see is a whole host of templates that you can access and utilise and modify in a way that's useful for yourself. And that's all well and good, but again, if you don't have that fundamental knowledge of Excel and how to perform calculations and formulas and so on in it, you won't really find these of benefit at this moment in time, but certainly it's something to bear in mind for the future. But anyways, if you scroll back up to the top of this right hand menu, what you'll see is blank workbook, and that's what we're going to use today. So if you just click on that, it will launch your first workbook. So the way that the actual application is laid out is that at the very top here, this green bar, if you like, is your tabs. So all the way from File through to Help is your tab menu. And as you click into each of these tabs, you'll see the lower menu adjust. Now what this lower menu is what's called a ribbon. And the ribbon is split up into logical groupings of things that you may use on an ongoing regular basis. And we'll kind of delve into that as the video progresses. But anyways, if we cast our eye downward, what you'll see is this kind of grid layout. Now this is the heart of the Excel document itself. This is split up into columns and rows. Now the intersection where a column and a row meets is what's called a cell. So at the moment, the cell that's currently highlighted is cell C2. And again, if I was to just click anywhere randomly, I've got F4 currently highlighted. Now, there we go. So we've got our tabs, our ribbon, our columns, our rows, and our cells. The other thing to bear in mind is that Excel also uses ranges. Now, a range is simply a range of cells that have been selected and you want to perform an action in. So in order to highlight a range, all you do is click on the first cell. So I've got B3 highlighted at the moment. And if I were to press my Shift key and click on E3, it will highlight that range. So at the moment I have range B3 over to E3 highlighted, and that's a range. Similarly, I can simply click on a cell and drag the mouse to whatever location, and that is currently highlighting cells C5 to I13, and this is a range. Okay, so this is all well and good, but until you put it into practice, I don't expect you at this stage to remember and recall each and every piece of terminology that I've given so far. Let's just delve in and put it into some context, and to do that, we're going to create our first table. So I'm going to take the hypothetical situation of being a bookstore owner. And I basically want to see the books that I have in my shop. I want to see how many of them and the actual price that the collective value would draw. So let's just go ahead and get started. So I've clicked on cell A1 and I'm just going to type now. So I'm going to just type in title. Great. So as you'll see here, the value that I've placed in A1 is also mimicked up here in this particular bar. Now this bar here is what's called your formula bar. Although it's just kind of copied what I've got just now, you'll see as we progress that this formula bar is actually quite powerful, so it's just something to bear in mind. But anyways, I'm on cell A1. What I want to do next is just hit my tab key and that'll automatically scroll over to the corresponding cell, so it highlights cell B1. And what I want to put in here is quantity. Okay, great. And again, if we press our tab key, I'm just going to put in price. And again, hit tab, I'm just going to put in total. Great. So the next thing that we want to do is just hit our enter key. And what you'll find is that Excel automatically goes to the next logical place for data to be inserted. It's somewhat like a carriage return if you think in an old typewriter. Probably showing my age there. But anyways, so title. What title are we going to have? Now, I'm not that imaginative, so I'm just going to put in book 1. Great. And again, I'm going to put in quantity. It can be anything at all that you like, and I hope you're following along at the moment. So I'm going to say that I've got 10 of those, and again we're going to hit tab, and the price of those I'm going to say is 150 or 150 even. Great. I'm just going to leave the total column blank at the moment, and again just hit enter. So what we're going to do is just put in a couple of values here, and the kind of end product is going to be a table with our total automatically calculated, and then we're going to go on to format it just so it looks a little bit nicer. So anyways, if you just go ahead and insert some values in here, be any numbers at all that you like. Let's just say this one's 5 and book 3, hitting the tab all along just to make sure I'm scrolling, and let's call this 10, and lastly just end on an even number. Got 30 of those, and I'm going to say that's 12. There we go. So if you need to pause the video just now, just so you can get caught up, that's okay. But I'm going to continue on now with formulas. So the great thing about Excel is that it's basically seen as the industry standard because it is really quick on doing quick calculations and being able to kind of show things in a presentable way. So what we're going to do is just click on cell D2, and we're going to do our first formula in here. So the way in which we do that is that we just hit our equals key, and what we can do is just click on the cell that we actually want to perform a calculation in. So I want to do C2 times B2. So rather than type those values in, all I'm going to do is, with the equals already populated in cell D2, I'm just going to simply click on cell C2. I'm going to hit Shift and the number 8 on my keyboard, which is an asterisk, whatever it may be on your keyboard, just as long as you've got that asterisk shown there. And then I'm going to click on B2, and I'm just going to hit enter. And what that does is automatically calculate the price times by the quantity itself. Now, rather than manually go down and perform that action each and every time you've got a book that you want to calculate, all you need to do is just click on the cell that you've already inserted your formula into, and if you just take a second just to notice the cursor change. So the cursor at the moment, as you can see, is across. Now as I draw that down, I've got the arrows pointing in opposite directions, and finally if I'm at the bottom right of the active cell, you'll see this bold cross that's shown. So as soon as you see that bold cross, what you want to do is just click your left mouse button, hold it, and then scroll down to the last part of your data, and then release. And what that will automatically do is perform all the calculations for the subsequent cells, or the subsequent rows rather. So if you just go ahead and click, just a left click on cell D3 or wherever your second calculation is taking place, and if you just cast an eye up to this formula bar that I kind of touched on earlier. So what you'll notice is that the calculation itself is automatically adjusted to the corresponding rows. So you'll see here it's C3 times by B3, so it automatically knows that it's this particular row times by that row. Similarly, if you click on the next cell down, you'll see C4 B4, C5 B5. Now that takes a lot of the legwork out of manual calculations and stuff like that. It also just means that you can continue adding data and the corresponding rows will update. And I'll just give you an example of that. So I'm going to add in a fifth book. So I'm going to put in book 5. I'm going to say I have 20 of these and the price is, let's say, £12. And just when I press tab, it automatically takes that calculation down for you again. So again, it's just done C6 times by B6 automatically. Great. So this looks pretty basic just now, although that we do have some fancy formulas in here. So what we're going to do is just jazz it up a little bit. So in order to kind of format stuff, what you need to do is tell Excel which cells you want to make a change to. So at this moment in time, I'd like to make a change to this full row here. So all I'm going to do is just click on the row number 1, which highlights that full stretch, the full row itself. And all I'm going to do with my home tab selected is just hover on down the actual ribbon where you see the font groupings. And I'm just going to click on B for bold. And as you'll notice, as you kind of hover over any particular one of these icons, a message box kind of shows up just to let you know what clicking that will do. So we're just going to left click on that. And as you'll see, the text has been adjusted. You can also do things whilst it's highlighted, like make it italic, and you can also underline the data. So if we just click off that, take a wee second just to appreciate what we've done and think, well, does this look good? So for me, I'm not a massive fan of italics or underlines, so I'm going to adjust it. So again, just to make changes, all you do is click the row that you want to make a change to. If you head on up again, all you're going to do is click on it again. It will remove the italics. And again, if you want to remove the underlines, just click once on the U with the underline and it will modify it as you go. Great, so it's looking pretty good now. Now, the other thing to bear in mind is that you might not always want to make a change to the full row. You might only want to make a change to certain items on there. So in order to do that, you just click simply on, just a left click on the item that you want to make a change to. Let's just say I want to make a change to book 2 and I also want to make a change to book 4. But if I want to make 2 changes, Excel doesn't like it. You have to tell it that you want to make a change in 2 separate places. So in order to do that, let's just say book 2. All I'm going to do with book 2 highlighted, so cell A3, I'm going to hit my control key and then click on cell A5. And what that does is it highlights 2 separate cells. So if I just go ahead and click the B button, the modifications only happen to the cells that I have selected. Again, if I wanted to make a change to, say, a few of these items, so let's just say B2, I'm going to hold down my control key, just click randomly, and whilst control is still held down, click again. So you'll see a number of cells have been highlighted individually. So again, I'm just going to hit a B button. Great. So this is just simply showing you how you can make changes not only to full rows, but to columns and individual cells. So what about if I wanted to make a change to the range? All I would do there is if you click on cell A1, and a quick way to do it rather than dragging over, missing the last column, dragging down, finding that you're scrolling all over the place, rather than go through the kind of faff of that, all you need to do is click on the first cell. So at the moment I've got A1 selected. I'm going to hold down Control, Shift and click my right mouse button. And then whilst Control and Shift are still held down, I'm going to press my down key. And that highlights the full range. And if you remember, a range is from the top left hand corner all the way to the bottom right most highlighted or most populated data. Okay, so what I want to do here is just undo those changes. So I'm just going to take off the bold. So again, just hit B and that'll bring it back down to basics. Great. Okay, so what I'd like to do next is change the alignment of these. So in order to do that, I'm going to select my range. So again, it's A1, Control Shift right, whilst Control and Shift are still held down, press down. And within the Home tab, I'm going to go over and hover over this one here, which is Center. And the prompt on that says center your content. Great, that's what I want to do. I'm going to click into that. Lovely. Okay, now if you've noticed, columns C and D are both monetary values. So in order to kind of present that to the end user, what you can do is simply highlight column C, and again, just by holding shift, you can click column D and the full columns themselves will be highlighted. So in order to make changes to these two rows, what we do is just right click. If you head on down to format cells, what we're going to do is select currency in the box presented, and on the right hand side menu you'll see a few changes that you can make. You can increment the amount of decimal places, you can decrement these, whatever suits yourself, and then on the actual symbol itself you can select the symbol of your currency that you want to use. So if my voice hasn't given away, I am Scottish and therefore I use the pound here in the UK. What you can do though, if you're elsewhere in the world, is you can simply scroll down and you can select the currency that best suits yourself. You've got euros in here, you've got dollars, all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to keep mine on the pound, and I'm just going to go ahead and hit OK. So again, you'll see the changes happen instantaneously here. The last thing that I'd like to do is just put a bit of a border around these and really make this a table. So the way that you do that, again, I'm going to select the range. So I'm going to click on the uppermost left portion of our data, which for me is A1. I'm going to hit Control Shift right. Whilst Control and Shift is held down, I'm going to press the down key. And what we're going to do is just go to our Insert tab and we're going to put in a table. So the actual prompt itself, what it does is it highlights the range that you're making a change to, and the prompt itself asks, is this your data? Yes, it is. And it asks, do you already have headers in there? I do. I've already got my title, quantity, price and total. And with that already checked, I'm just going to hit OK. And what you'll see is this nice new table presented to you. So a few things to note. What you'll see here is that you've got these kind of drop down menus that have kind of automatically appeared. What you can do, because it shows, well, it's not actually cutting off the end of your data, but to the end user it looks like you're cutting off the end of the data. I want it to be quantity rather than what's shown. So in order to expand this particular column, what I can do is just simply hover between column rows, the columns themselves, which is columns B and C. Whilst you hover over them, again you'll see the cursor slightly change, and I want this kind of icon here where it's a downward pipe and two arrows pointing in the opposite directions. Once you see that, just use your left mouse button, click down and then scroll to the right, and you can expand that particular menu. Again, title, I'd like to make that a little bit bigger, and again I'm just going to hover between columns A and B. Once I see the icon and the cursor change, I'm going to hold down my left mouse button and scroll again. And we'll just do that again for price and total. Great, so this looks pretty good. What we'd like to do now is save it down. So in order to do that, the very top hand menu of the actual application itself, you'll see this kind of floppy disk icon, probably showing my age, but yeah, it's a floppy disk. So all we're going to do is hit that particular icon. It will bring up this new page. It'll ask, well, where do you want to save it? For me, I'd like to keep it on my local system, so I'm just going to hit browse. Once you hit browse, you just search for the location that you want to put them. I'd like to put it in Excel Basics, and you can rename it whatever you like. So I'm going to call mine Workbook 1. And say books. Okay, once you're happy with it, just hit save. And that's you. You can close it down knowing that your new table has been saved. So if you found this helpful, please like, subscribe, leave me a few comments, just let me know how you got on.